In a world that feels like it's being pulled apart, where nationalism seems to be making a comeback, what if the cure isn't political? What if it's actually psychological? What if the real problem isn't the foreigner at the border, but the one we carry inside ourselves? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to dive into the work of one of the most brilliant and, let's be honest, controversial thinkers of our time.
This is Julia Kristeva. She's a philosopher, a psychoanalyst, and, this is the important part, an immigrant. And that last piece, her own life experience, well, that's the key that unlocks her entire way of thinking about who we are and where we belong. You know, she said something back in 1993 that just perfectly sets the stage. Even when she was this celebrated intellectual star in France, she said she still felt like an immigrant. And that feeling, that persistent sense of being an outsider, that becomes the launchpad for her whole radical take on nationalism, identity, and what it even means to belong in our world today. Now, her ideas didn't just pop out of nowhere. To really get what she's arguing, we have to rewind a bit. We have to step into the world that shaped her, a world of strangers. So, picture this. The year is 1966. A 25-year-old Julia Kristeva shows up in Paris, all the way from Bulgaria. And she doesn't just arrive in some sleepy city. No, she lands right in the middle of an intellectual explosion. I mean, this is the exact year that giants like Jacques Lacan and Michel Foucault are publishing these earth-shattering books. Kristeva was thrown right into this cauldron of ideas. And the thinking back then, it was something else. Kristeva and her whole generation, they were totally convinced that the very idea of the nation was this old, dusty thing from the past. Seriously, they thought it was about to just dissolve, and we'd all live in one big, unified, cosmopolitan world. Yeah, that's not exactly how things played out, is it? Instead, something old and kind of dangerous started to bubble back up to the surface. Kristeva had a name for it: the nation's fever. So, what went wrong? Where did things go off the rails? Well, Kristeva says that all those big ideas that people used to believe in, the ones that gave them a sense of who they were, things like Marxism or universalism, they were like mirrors. And those mirrors just shattered. And into that empty space, something much older and much darker came rushing back in: national hatreds and aggressive nationalism. And why would people run back to that? Well, think about it. Without those other grand ideologies, people felt lost. They felt adrift. They needed a refuge, right? A community, an identity. And the nation was pretty much the only thing left on the menu. But here's where her background as a psychoanalyst really kicks in. She doesn't just point a finger and condemn this nationalism. No, she sees it like a doctor would. It's a symptom, a pathology. You don't just yell at a patient for being sick, you try to figure out what's causing the illness so you can actually treat it. And that way of thinking, that psychoanalytic lens, leads her to this incredible metaphor for understanding the tension between a nation and its immigrants. It's this idea of grafts without a tree. Okay, so she calls the foreigner a graft. Think of it like a skin graft in surgery, or grafting a new branch onto a tree. It's a new element being introduced to a host, and it has all this potential, right? It could make the host stronger, more vibrant, but, and this is a big but, only if one condition is met. And here's the catch. For that transplant to succeed, the host body itself has to be healthy. If a nation is feeling weak, maybe its economy is tanking, or it feels culturally humiliated, it's not going to see that foreigner as an enrichment. It's going to see them as a threat. And what does a sick body do? It rejects the transplant. So she takes this idea and applies it to the real world. She looks at a place like France and sees a pretty homogeneous culture, a body, a tree, that can, when it's feeling confident, accept new grafts. But then she looks at the United States and sees something totally different, a place with all these deep divisions, and, as she puts it, no bridge between the communities. And this brings her to this really stunning and honestly pretty provocative statement about America. She says that without that strong, unifying cultural core, that tree, the U.S. is just a collection of competing grafts, all struggling for space, with nothing to really attach to. Okay, so if nationalism is a sickness and rejecting foreigners is a symptom, then what's the cure? This is where Kristeva basically proposes a kind of psychoanalysis for an entire country. The goal here isn't to destroy the nation, not at all. It's to make it optimal, to create a healthy, confident nation that's so strong in its own identity that it doesn't feel threatened by outsiders. In fact, it's strong enough to actually welcome them.
So how do you do that? Well, she lays out this controversial two-step strategy, and it sounds just like therapy. Step 1, narcissistic reassurance. Before you do anything else, you have to give the patient, the nation, its confidence back. That means jobs, economic security, a sense of pride. You can't start by attacking the wound. Then, and only after the patient is stable, can you move to step 2, touch the wound. That's when you can start doing the hard work of exploring the nation's deepest fears.
And Kristeva is just brutally pragmatic about this. She basically asks, you want unemployed workers who feel like their own identity is slipping away to just welcome immigrants with open arms? Not a chance. In the name of what? Some abstract ideal they don't even believe in anymore? No. First, she says, you have to address their very real fears and needs. All right, so this all leads us to the final piece of the puzzle. And this is really the most profound part of her whole diagnosis. The real cure, it requires a total shift in how we see the problem. So after all this talk about economics and politics and national pride, what's the final diagnosis? Where does this deep, gut-level fear of the foreigner really come from? What's the root cause? For Kristeva, the ultimate therapy isn't just for the nation, it's for each and every one of us individually. It's about turning the spotlight inward and doing the difficult work of exploring our own internal strangeness, our own otherness. And this is her final, powerful insight. The fear we project onto the foreigner on the outside is actually a fear of a part of ourselves on the inside. The real work is to recognize that the foreigner isn't just out there. The foreigner is in here. We all carry this deep, unsettling strangeness within us. And the only path to a healthier world is to finally, courageously accept it.